Yeah. Okay, the doors are closed and there's no escape, everyone, so you've got me for the next half an hour or so. Thanks for coming to the session, and we'll be talking about how you can elevate your VMware Cloud Foundation environment with Pure Storage. If you're not the right session, as I said, you're stuck there, so here I am. I'm Leemorris. I've been in the industry for 30 plus years, predominantly in infrastructure, and probably for the last 15 years, sort of focused around storage. I've been at Pure, this is my 8th year at Pure now, so I'm focused on technical pre-sales and using all that knowledge that I've gleaned over the years to propose and present the right solutions for my customers. So can I get a quick show of hands of people who've actually heard of Pure Storage? That's pretty cool. Hands up again if you actually used it. Okay, so there's a few people in here using Pure Storage, so you don't have to take my word for it. You can talk to the guys who've been using Pure Storage. What I'm telling you is absolutely the truth. But for the people who haven't heard much about Pure, who haven't used it, Pure have been around since 2009. We've always done all flash. We've never done spinning disks. So we've grew over the years to having over 13,500 global customers. We've continued to take market share from our competition. Around 63% of the Fortune 500 companies now run Pure in their data centers. And I've put a few customers up there. Obviously, we've got 13,500, so I can't get them all on one slide, but I've cherry-picked a few of the customers that are mine, actually, in that little example. We've been recognized as 4 times a great place to work. One of the things that drew me to Pure was when I ever went into a Pure office, everyone was smiling, everyone was happy. The free snacks in the kitchen didn't either. We've been 12 times a Gartner Magic Quadrant leader, and we've got the highest NPS score, Net Promoter Score. I don't know if people know about that, but it's a minus 100 to a plus 100 score. We're in the top 1% of business-to-business companies for NPS, and that's independently verified by a third party who go out to all of our customers and ask them, would they advocate Pure? And as I mentioned, because we're all flash, the environmental impact is pretty cool too. You can get onto the Pure website and download the latest ESG report. But that means we use up to 5 times less energy, up to 5 times less rack space, and at least 90% less e-waste than our competition. One of the reasons around the less e-waste is we don't use industry standard SSDs anymore. We used to when we first came to market, but for the last few years we use our own technology called direct flash modules. That makes us really dense, and the mean time between failures is probably 3 times longer than on a standard SSD, which in turn is about 7 times longer than a spinning disk. And there we go. So this is the latest Gartner Magic Quadrant. As I mentioned, we're 12 times the leader, 6 years positioned highest in both axes, and you can see the gap there between us and the chasing pack. So that's just a little sort of nutshell about Pure. But please come and see us at Booth 1 if you want to find out a little bit more. A few terms to know in this presentation. Obviously, we're at VMUG, so I'm guessing most people know these terms anyway, but software-defined data center is VMware's vision for the data center, implementing storage, networking, and management, all configured in their own software. The SDDC manager is the brains of that outfit, and then you need a management domain and workload domains where you have your work cut out, and each one of those domains is going to need principal and maybe supplemental storage, and we'll talk a little bit about how that works. So the management domain is the first domain deployed in a VCF. A minimum of 3 dedicated ESXiOs for the management domain, 4 recommended if you're using vSAN. vSAN was required as principal storage until VCF 9, but since VCF 9, you can actually use NFS and FC storage for your principal storage in your workload domain as well, so don't have to use vSAN if you don't want to. And then the management, as we mentioned, all the management appliances are deployed there. So the vCenter server, SDDC manager, NSX manager, and VMware Array suite, etc., if you need to use that. And then we move on to the workload domains. This is where, obviously, as the name suggests, all the work happens. There are additional domains deployed for your production workloads. Previously, a maximum of 14 workload domains per VCF instance until VCF 9. But since VCF 9, you can have up to 24 workload domains now. Again, minimum 3 dedicated ESX IOs, but if you're using vSAN, the recommended best practice is 4. And you can use NFS vVols, and we'll talk a little bit about vVols. Anyone using vVols at the moment? Okay, well, sorry about that, but you probably know what's coming. And VMFS on FC is supported as principal storage. You can use VMFS over iSCSI or NVMe over Fabrics as supplemental storage. Obviously, vVols is being deprecated. It's not. I don't think it's supported. It's sort of you're able to use it in VCF 9. We've been told it's fully deprecated by 9.1. I was told by someone yesterday that's debatable. So I'll leave that in the air. But as far as I'm aware, they're going to be fully deprecated by 9.1. And this is I'm not going to talk too much about this slide, but this is a slide about all the supported storage for VCF that you can use for principal or supplemental. One thing, the other thing to mention there is the things that have changed is the principal storage that you can use now is like you can use NFS and NFC for that management domain. If people want these slides, come and see us at booth 1. We can get a copy of the slides over to you. So the VCF suite, this is the core components. Hopefully most people know about this. You've got your SDDC manager, the brains of the outfit, supplying everything else. You still need a vCenter. If you're using containers, Tanzu, obviously every domain has got ESX IOs. You've got the Araya suite lifecycle, which used to be vRealize for automation operations and operations for logs. And everything else that goes along with that, the SPBM for vSAN, etc. So where does Pure fit in to VCF? Well, sort of we integrate everywhere across the entire suite. So Pure One and Fusion is our intelligent control plane for what we call our enterprise data cloud. And again, please come and see us at booth 1. I don't want to go into it too much for the sake of time. But Pure One and Fusion sit there alongside SDDC Manager. We've got the best vCenter plugin that I've come across in all my years in the industry. Hopefully, some of the people who are using Pure can attest to that. You can actually manage the entire vSphere estate from the entire storage estate from within your vSphere GUI, and we integrate completely into that Array suite lifecycle as well. We've got Pure Protect as a service, which can be implemented for protecting your VMs from on-prem into the cloud, or as an alternative option for SR, what used to be SRM now is obviously Lifecycle Manager. And then obviously SPBM can then be utilized with Pure over vVols, again, until 9.1, NFS and VMFS. So why Pure Storage for VCF? And it's also relevant for VVF. But what I'd like to say is, like, if you don't remember anything else about Pure today, remember the 3 core principles that Pure was built on. There's we call it the 3 E's: effortless, efficient, and evergreen. So effortless means there's no, storage management shouldn't be really hard. As I said, you can do everything through the vSphere GUI as well. We don't mandate any training courses. So we do offer training courses if obviously people want them, but it's not a mandated thing. You don't need to read pages and pages of manuals to manage a Pure Storage Array. We've got full stack automation, so there's no fine tuning. You don't have to worry about RAID groups, sort of RAID levels, creating aggregates, and then thinking, oh well, maybe we should have created that at RAID 5 or RAID 6. There's none of that, and it's a global storage pool. So every array, whether you're using NFS, whether you're using block, it's that global storage pool. So we dedupe and compress against everything in one global storage pool. And that's even if you add more storage to that array, it just gets added to that global storage pool. So you get obviously better, the more data you put on there, the better dedupe you're going to get, the better data reduction, which means less actual physical storage having to go into the array. And we offer predictive and proactive support. So we mentioned Pure One on the previous slide. All the arrays that can call home, I've got a few dark site customers that are disconnected from the internet, but the ones that can call home, we've got 30,000 plus arrays calling home across the globe. We offer that predictive and proactive support through Pure One. It's our software as a service sort of web-based management where you can see all of your arrays in one pane of glass. You can do things sort of like storage trends, so you can get capacity trends. So you can look at what that array's been doing over the past 12 months, and it will tell you, oh, at the moment you're at 70% capacity, but if you carry on with the current trend, you're going to reach capacity within 3 months, so you might want to think about adding some extra storage. And the same for performance. If the array is sort of getting to the level of its performance, you can actually it'll tell you that maybe you want to upgrade those controllers in that array to the next level to bring the load down on the array a little bit. And then, efficiency. So we do have the best data reduction in the industry, and the reason for that is because, as I said, we were built for all flash. So going back 10, 12 years, flash was pretty expensive. So to reduce the cost and make it a viable solution for our customers back then, we had to make sure that we could reduce the amount of flash that you needed to use to resolve your workload issues. And I'll briefly talk a little bit about that. So it's based on a sliding block dedupe. So when a block comes in, we look at that block. If it's a match to something that's already there, we don't just automatically just write that metadata, we just slide along and we keep going until it's no longer a match, and then we can write the metadata. And the same thing, if it's not a match, we just slide along by 512 bytes and keep going until it is a match. Industry-leading low power cooling and rack space as well, because of that high density, we've got the best terabytes per rack unit in the industry. And we never ask for any downtime or maintenance windows for any sort of maintenance or capacity upgrades, including controller refreshes, etc., which I'll talk about when we talk about Evergreen. So Evergreen is our support model. So if you buy a Pure Storage array, it could well be the last storage array you ever need to buy. And some of my customers here can testify to that, because I've got customers who bought back 10 years ago. They've renewed their support every 3 years, and every 3 years they've been getting a controller upgrade, so they get a performance boost. They're not running on old kit, which means there's never any concept of end of service life. You never have to rebuy that storage again. So with legacy systems, you buy a storage array, maybe there's half a petabyte in that array. In a few years' time, you have to buy another storage array. Perhaps now you need 750 terabytes. You have to do that data migration and then decommission that old storage. With Pure, it's all data in place, upgrades, never any need for any more risky migrations. There's no hidden costs, where we've got a flat and fair support model. So when the support price that you pay on day one when you purchase your array, you'll pay on year 3, year 6, year 9 going forward. It's that flat and fair support. You never get that hockey stick on your support costs. And as I mentioned, no concept of end of service life, so you're really future-proofing your storage infrastructure. And that's why we call it a pure data platform, because you can just keep growing that platform, never have to worry about having to replace the arrays as long as you keep that support contract going. So, and that means you can use the right protocol for the right workloads. It's a unified all-flash array, as I mentioned, so you can use any block protocol or any file protocol, including SMB. Obviously, that's not supported with VMware, but you can use the right protocol for the right job. And I'll sort of mention that you can provision, as I said before, you can provision all the storage from within the vSphere GUI, so that you don't even have to jump onto the array to manage that array. I've actually been to a site to one of my customer sites. Who were a dark site, so they were disconnected. And we asked them while we're doing a service review, can we just log onto the array to have a quick look at what's happening on the array? And he said, I would do, but I can't remember the password because we do it all in vCenter. So he did find it because he had to go to his password vault and pull the password out. So what does that mean? It means you can decrease the cost and risk with FlashArray. You can eliminate the HCI silos. So if you're getting compute bound or you're getting capacity bound in one of your workload domains, you don't have to worry about that if you've got FlashArray at the back end, because you just put the compute where you need the compute, and the storage looks after itself. And again, no additional points of management, proved economics using that disaggregated architecture. And then there's no trade-off that you get with an HCI environment where you're trading off cost, performance, and availability. So if you want something cheap, you're probably not going to get performance and availability. If you want something that's performant and highly available, probably not going to get it very cheap. The FlashArray is optimized to accommodate all of that. And as we mentioned before, reducing that power and cooling requirement in the data center. One thing to mention, I know we get, you get vSAN bundled in with VCF, and we can work with vSAN as well. So you could use vSAN in some of the environments, and then use FlashArray as supplemental storage in those workload domains as well, if you wanted to do that. But although vSAN, an element of vSAN is free in VCF, you still need to buy those SSDs to run vSAN on. At some point, they're going to go end of life, and you'll need to replace that storage again. With FlashArray, you don't have to worry about that. We're going to keep that storage fresh for you as long as you've got a support contract with Pure. And this is just another example of how life can be made a bit more simpler in a VCF environment. Now, some people might be doing this on a regular basis. Some people, it might be few and far between. But when you add an ESXi host into a domain, you image and patch the ESXi host. You apply all the VCF prerequisites. Then you commission the host in SDDC Manager and deploy it into a workload domain. If you want to redeploy that ESXi host, because that cluster is over-provisioned with compute, and you want to move that ESXi host into a different cluster because you've got another cluster that's needs a bit more compute, you want to assign the host from VCF in your workload domain, then you need to re-image it, patch it again, apply all the VCF prerequisites, and you sort of go around in that circle. And that time can vary, but that could be an hour or so out of one of your infrastructure guys' days. If you use FlashArray at the back end, you can use boot from SAN. So initially, you do that image, patch the ESXi host, apply all the VCF prerequisites, but then at that point, take a FlashArray snapshot of that boot from SAN volume. Then you commission it in SDDC Manager, deploy it into your workload domain. If you want to redeploy that host at any point, you want to assign it, revert the snapshot back to where when you took the snapshot before you'd actually commissioned it in SDDC Manager, and then you're good to go. So you're saving yourself quite a bit of time. And as I said, some people might be doing this on a regular basis. Others maybe every now and again. But it's a decent thing to be able to think about to save a bit of time. There's actually a demo on that. I'm not going to run that today because it's a YouTube demo. It's going to take about 5 minutes. But as I said, if you want to see that demo, come and see us at booth 1, and we'll run that demo for you there. It'd probably remiss of me to say, everyone sort of knows about the Broadcom, what's been going on with Broadcom. People looking at alternatives for some workloads. We're all at VMUG today, so I'm guessing most people are going to be staying on VMware for some or all of your environments. But as I said, we've got a really good solution with FlashArray in VMware. VMware actually use FlashArray in their labs, so any new features that VMware bring out, we're good to go. We bring them out more or less in lockstep with VMware. If you're thinking of moving some of your workloads into the cloud, we've also got a really good solution in Azure or AWS with AVS or EVS called Pure Cloud Block Store. And what Pure Cloud Block Store is, it's basically software that runs on one of our arrays on-prem, but running on cloud infrastructure. So I'll just take a Azure VMware solution as an example. So in Azure, Pure Cloud Block Store would be, the controllers would be 2 Azure VMs, and then a bunch of Azure managed disks as the storage layer. And then you get all the benefits that you get on-prem, all the enterprise benefits, sort of thin provisioning, which you don't get if you're using Azure managed disk. If you want an Azure managed disk and you want 100 gig, you're paying for 100 gig from the get-go. With Pure, you present a volume. It's actually taking up no space until you actually start putting data on that volume. And then when you start putting data on the volume, you're getting all the benefits of the data reduction, the dedupe and the compression. And all the other stuff that goes along with that, like the data at rest encryption that comes as standard, built-in ransomware protection with a feature that's called safe mode. And with Pure, you never have to pay for any licenses. So all features that we've currently got are available for all customers as soon as they buy an array and they've got a support contract, but also including any new features that are coming down the line. So you buy an array today, there's a new feature comes out in 6 months, all you need to do is non-disruptively upgrade the array to that level of software that supports the new feature, and you're good to use that. Obviously, we work with other virtualization providers as well, including, shouldn't probably be saying much about this at VMUG, but we work with Nutanix, we work with AWS Outposts, OpenStack, and Hyper-V. So you could use that same array that's in a VCF environment, and you could have an Hyper-V cluster attached to that array as well. There's no reason why you couldn't do both. And then, lastly, a lot of people are starting to look at modernizing their environments with KubeVirt, sort of for containerization, but using that type of environment for VMs as well. And we've got a good solution with Portworx. And again, come and see us at Booth 1, and we're happy to talk a little bit more in detail about that. So, to recap, why VCF with Pure? We'll simplify and optimize your hybrid cloud environments, save hours, and today is in ESXi management, for that BAU stuff. Optimize the data center resources, eliminating those silos where you might be capacity bound in some of those workload domains. Don't have to worry about that with Pure Storage at the back end. And deploy on any fabric and any protocol that you want. Maybe invest in protection of your previous investments, if you've got fiber channel SANs, etc. Automate and protect. We said we've got built-in ransomware protection with what we call safe mode. The way that works, I'll briefly talk about that, is when you delete any object on a Pure Storage array, it drops into what we call the eradication zone, but for want of a better word, I always talk about it as the recycle bin. So you think about a recycle bin on your laptop. It drops into that recycle bin and a 24-hour timer kicks in. That's the default on an array. You can actually, as you do on a laptop, you can go into that recycle bin and delete things out of the recycle bin or empty the recycle bin. With safe mode, the first thing that it does is stop the recycle bin from anything being deleted or the recycle bin being emptied. But you can also increase the timeout, so to what your policy would dictate. So you can have that as 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. So if you got hit with a ransomware attack, for instance, and a bad actor has got into your environment, first thing they're going to do is try and get rid of your backups, or stop you recovering from your backups. And then if they can get onto your arrays, they'll look at snapshots, make sure you haven't got anywhere to recover from before they start that encryption process. With safe mode, they can't. They can delete the snapshots, but they'll drop into the recycle bin, and then they've got to time out. So if they kick off that an encryption process, the other thing that's going to happen with Pure is we'll detect that as an anomaly. Obviously, data reduction is going to start decreasing rapidly as the encryption kicks in. When that happens, we'll say, there's an event here. We've noticed an anomaly. We'll look at what the last known good snapshot is for you to recover from. You can recover from that snapshot, although there might well be malware on that volume. You can close your environment off, and then clean the volume, and you're back into a working state in probably hours rather than days or weeks. Jaguar Land, everyone knows about what's going on at Jaguar Land Rover. They've been unable to make cars now for about 2 to 3 weeks, and they usually make 1,000 cars a day. I think it's 1,000 cars a day. So yeah, that's another reason to be using Pure behind VMware. If people want to take a quick snapshot of the resources, you can get those QR codes. There's some Pure resources and some VMware resources there. I'll flick it back on in a bit, but that's the end of the presentation. So we've managed to get through that pretty quickly. Any questions on any of that?
Yeah, the anomaly detection in that you were just referring to a moment ago, but presumably that type of thing wouldn't be available in like a dark site scenario. So, I mean, you mentioned also about the kind of plugins that you've got, the integration with vSphere and operations. So I just really want to know kind of what would be available in a dark site.
So everything would be available in a dark site that I've mentioned. But you're right, the anomaly detection at the moment relies on Pure 1, which is where all the arrays call back. So that's where we get the anomaly detection from. But more and more of those features are being built into the array. So one thing I haven't mentioned is Pure Fusion. So our first iteration of Pure Fusion is how you can actually create a fleet of arrays. So all of your arrays are seen as one, let's say, one virtualized cloud of storage. So you might have several arrays in your site. You might only have 2, but you can create a fleet, add any other arrays into that fleet. That used to require Pure 1. We've built that into the arrays now. So even dark site customers can take advantage of creating a fleet, being able to log on to any array in the fleet as an endpoint, and then they can manage the entire fleet from any array. There's no one manager of managers. Each array can be logged onto as an entire fleet. So I have been told that we are going to be bringing that anomaly detection and alerting into Fusion. So that's probably a future, and that would just be a feature that you could use as a customer going forward. I hope that's answered your question there. Any other questions?
If you're using the vCenter plugin,
yep.
are you managing the full array or just the part that is dedicated to the VMware part?
So anything that you can do with storage in VMware, you'd be able to do on the array from the plugin. But obviously,
so in case you have a Nutanix system and VMware attached to the same array.
it would. So yeah, if you're doing it in vCenter, it's only going to be. Let's say, for instance, if it's a greenfield site, and I've done this in POCs in the past. So you first access to the account. You installed the plugin. You've registered the plugin in vCenter. So you click down on your cluster, go to the Pure Storage plugin section, and say create host group. What that's going to do is grab all of the ESX IOs in that cluster. At the back end, it's going to talk to the array. It's going to create a host group, so you don't have to do this manually. It's going to create the host group on the array with all of those hosts in that cluster, ready to present volumes to. So and then the next thing you'd do is go to create a VMFS data store. If you're not using the plugin, what you would have had to have done in the past is create a volume on the array, which is still really easy, by the way. I had a customer call me up to say, thanks for convincing the business to move to Pure. You've made my life so much easier. And he wasn't even using the VMware plugin. He was just doing things manually. And when I told him to start using the VMware plugin, he was blown away. But yeah, you literally go create VMFS data store. In that cluster, on the array, it's going to create the volume at the size that you said you want it and present it out to that host group. So it's all done for you. It just saves a few little manual steps. But yeah, anything that you want to do in that is going to present it to just that vCenter cluster. So if you've got another hypervisor in another environment, that's going to need to be managed separately. But we have got sort of integration with with those people as well that I mentioned on the slide there. Anyone else? I must have done a good job then. Well, yeah, I think that's it. So thanks again for your time. Come and see us at Booth 1 if you do think of any other questions or you want to know a little bit more. If you want a copy of the slides, happy to send the slides out to you as well over via email, etc. So, yeah, and enjoy the rest of your day. I really appreciate your time, and I hope it's been informative.